Hey everybody, it's Michelle LaVore and
Devin LaVore
coming at you. And we're so glad that you're here, and we pray that you guys are blessed by what the Lord has to share today. And it's just, we just pray that as we share our own walk with the Lord, that you guys are encouraged in your walk with the Lord and what He's doing in your life.
Yes.
And before we get started, because we are going to be doing Act 1, Scene 31 this week, and kind of sharing about our week in general. I know we did a prophetic word. We released that on Tuesday morning, but this video is about the entire week. And
that
I think
prophetic word was awesome.
It really was.
And then it was gone on to be confirmed by other people. It blew my mind, but keep going.
Yeah. But before we begin, we want to give a huge thank you to everyone who continues to give through support and also through prayers and just words of encouragement. We appreciate all of you, and we are support-based, so if you would like to give to us, you can, and we just really appreciate that. And we have a PayPal link below, and you can just click that.
Especially like right now as you're watching this video. Because this week we're gonna be needing some money, basically, get food and stuff, so just throwing that out there. Love you.
But so we're just gonna go ahead and get started with Act 1, Scene 31, and
of the restoration play.
Yes, of this restoration play. And I really believe we are just in the time of labor and delivery. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about that on one of our videos where it's like, hey, it's the labor and delivery time. I just believe that at the end of our, there's a full 40 weeks of pregnancy, the pregnancy promise process, and I just believe that the Lord was like, there was a fullness to what He was doing there, what He was sowing, what He was putting together, knitting together. But now we've entered in, and there was just this time of transitioning.
You mean when He said, it's time?
Yes, when He said, it's time, we began a transition process, and the Lord brought us to this place that we're staying in. But then there began just a time of labor and delivery, and we've been there now for about 3 weeks now, and I just think it's just continued. And so that's really kind of where God has had us, and it's really the work, the labor of the Lord upon our hearts and upon what He's doing. And I think it's interesting because I feel like there is labor and delivery for both our nation, but also personal promises and what God is doing in the lives of His people, the remnant group of God's people, those He's brought through a process, and so we're now seeing this time of, hey, you're in the laboring portion of it, and you will see the delivery. And so this last week, I
know that sounds like more waiting, but it is technically, but God gives us insight and revelation to know where we're at in the waiting. Even when you go into labor, you're still waiting through that process of labor and delivery to see the baby come out.
And so this week in particular, I really felt like God was highlighting hearts. And it's interesting because the number 31 has to do with offspring. And I'm telling you, the Lord this week, He was working on our children's hearts in such a massive way all week. We literally started off Sunday right away. The Lord was just like our firstborn. He started speaking to him about what He was doing in his own heart, and we had all these visions, and it continued the next morning to more of our children. It was just like, this is what I'm doing in their hearts. And we have the youngest, he's only 3, so
but the Lord's still working there.
But just like with our older 3, it was like, this is what I'm doing in their hearts, and really just speaking to them. And all week long, God has been really speaking to the heart, and just sharing his own heart. And a lot of what he's been sharing has to do with just choice, and the choices that we have to make.
Walking by the Spirit.
To walk by the Spirit or to walk by the flesh. And I felt like it was really a continuation from what he had been speaking, honestly, in week 30, where he was...
with the dilation or something?
No, that was week 29.
Oh, okay.
No, but week 30 about...
Oh, you mean scene?
Yeah, scene 30, sorry.
Okay.
Scene 30.
We get the scenes and the weeks and the hours and the times all mixed up because there's so much overlapping clockwork going on right now.
So it's... So our last week's video, basically. Scene 30.
Act 1, scene 30.
And about just... There was a lot in there about really just the, again, the Spirit, walking by the Spirit, choosing the Lord. And so it really continued on this week. But just throughout this week in particular, we could just see how the Lord was really working on their hearts. And they had just so many times over of just like having to choose, like, which direction am I gonna go, and just seeing like, okay, is your heart, when you come up against hard things, what are the choices you're gonna make? Are you gonna allow the emotions of what's going on in a situation to cause you to just continue in that way, or are you gonna choose the Spirit? And we had one of our mornings where the Lord's like, when things come, he gives us tools to overcome. And that can be by praying in the Spirit and really quieting your heart before the Lord, and listening. And for me personally, even there were just times where it was just like, all right, wow, I'm waking up. You can have just that overwhelming feeling.
Overwhelming filming. We haven't had that in a while.
Feeling, and then the Lord is trying to speak, and a lot of times for me personally, when the Lord starts to speak, especially about he brings up things that I feel like we are doing, but then he's bringing it up like, all right, I want you to listen and obey my heart and all that. It can trigger this like performance thing where it's like, oh man, Lord, am I not doing, like, what am I not doing? Like, and you can just get overwhelmed by just this performance pressure, or, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced that before, where maybe you're even like at a conference and the Lord starts sharing and you just start feeling like just, oh my gosh, like that might be me, but it's not from the Spirit of the Lord. It really is the flesh, and I think the enemy can come in there and he's like, ooh, I'm gonna blanket you with this. And so I was experiencing that one particular morning, and I was just, the Lord was like, hey, remember, like, you can pray in the Spirit. And quite honestly, it was like, I didn't really want to, because, when your flesh is just like, oh, that's going to be too hard. This is too difficult. Like, I don't think I can do this, and it feels like a mountain to climb. And so I was like, okay, all right, well, fine. I'll just pray in the Spirit. And it was just like little quiet. It was not like, yes, Lord, like, I'm going to overcome this.
Mountaintop conquering.
So I just started praying in the Spirit, just quietly. And then I even stopped. And I'm like, see, Lord, this just doesn't even work. Like, what is going on? And then, but as I'm like doing that, I was like, okay, well, let me just keep praying in the Spirit. And then it was like things just changed. Like, everything I was feeling that morning literally broke off. And then I just had a song in my heart. And I just started singing, like, Holy is the Lord. And it was just like, wow, okay, yeah. So all my flesh, you sit down, you be quiet, like my soul, like, and so just the Lord met me there, and I was able to just overcome. And that really was a lot of what the Lord was doing this whole week. It's just, but really on all of our hearts, but I think just specifically with our children.
So it's a little bit chaotic right now. Because our little guy will not go to sleep, and you see all the little cuts already. You know, that's him trying to like, hey, guys, blah, 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 guys. Oh, gosh, dude, we're trying to do a video. It was so much better when you were napping. You know what I'm saying? But hey, so that's to explain that. I know I over-explain, but who cares? I just wanted to say that. That's going in the video. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting week, you know, with the, like you were saying, with God working on the kids. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, it has been like a serious, like, but I really have felt like the Father's heart for our kids this week, and how he's just been like coaxing them, you know, even coaching them, you know, and just like trying to push them through to like, and even encourage them. Even today, just giving prophetic words and just sharing his heart and say, guys, I am for you. I am with you. I am on your side. But there is a battle, you know, between the flesh and the spirit. That's the reality. I feel like a lot of the things that the Lord says to our kids are things that pastors say to their congregations. Mm-hmm. I mean, and prophetic words are coming out, and all the stuff that you might see in a charismatic environment or a teaching environment, whatever you want to call it, whatever, you know, stripe and denomination you might be comfortable with. But it's like everything I'm used to God doing in adults' lives, he literally does in our kids' lives. Mm-hmm. And he does not pull punches a lot of times, surprisingly. He doesn't kidify. Yeah. He doesn't child gospel. You know what I mean? He just tells the truth. Because what else is God going to do? Mm-hmm. You know, so that's been a good portion of our week, just, and then recognizing for us. Oh, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, like, within that, it's been really awesome because God's really done a lot with like the picture of a garden, and just like really showing them, like, you know, just how it works when he's in the garden, and he prunes, and he helps develop and helps
this
grow.
This morning and yesterday morning.
Yeah.
He talked about that.
Just like the picture of a garden, and so it really has been a week of laboring, and we really could
laboring
see,
in a garden.
Which
is our hearts.
Yeah. And so the Lord is like, I'm laboring in your hearts. I'm laboring to bring about the readiness of your hearts to really receive what I have for you. But then also in that, it was so interesting because the Lord really paired it with this idea of, you know, not forgetting the joy that is set before you. Mm-hmm. And you know, just like with Christ, he went to the cross, but he was always looking at the joy that was set before him.
That was beyond the cross.
And it's like he knew he had to go through the pain, but then when he received glory on the other side, there was just this great joy. There was a reward for everything that he was going through. Yeah. And so just like in childbirth, you have the labor, but it's like you can get lost in the labor and the pain of the labor.
You want to quit.
And in those times, but it's like, why are you in labor to begin with? Mm-hmm. Well, you're in labor because you're getting ready to have a child. Yeah. And that is the joy.
That's the joy,
that's set before you. And so the same is true.
Because of the labor that you can have it.
Yeah,
because of the cross, he can receive the joy beyond the cross.
Yeah.
You know?
And so I'm like, that's where we're at. We're in this time where God's like, the reason you're in labor is to have the promises. So don't forget the joy that's set before you. Yeah. And so throughout this week, we've had these, just this imagery of like being on a bus with the Lord. And for me, the bus, it didn't look like a school bus or even like a Greyhound bus. It was like one of those like smaller charter buses. Yeah.
You know?
And it was like I had this picture of just that, you know, we're on this charter bus and Jesus is the driver. And actually it started off with just this sense of feeling like the Lord was saying this is like the last stop. We started off this week. It's like, hey, last stop, guys. Like, this is final call. You know, if you were going on a long bus trip and they have many stops along the way before you get to your destination, you know, you'd finally have this there'd be one more bus stop before you get to where you're going.
Yeah.
And it's like, people get off the bus, they get on the bus, all that kind of thing.
So if you're going to get something to eat, do it.
Do it now.
You're going to pee, do it.
Yeah.
You're going to whatever, go do it now, because...
Yeah. And so it was this sense of, like, the Lord saying, okay, last stop. Like, all right, because we're getting ready to go, and the next part is the destination.
Mm-hmm.
And so so we had that, but then I had this vision of where it was Jesus was as the bus driver. He even had his little, like, old-fashioned, like, bus hat on.
That's hilarious.
And he was closing the door. And it was this, like, okay, it's time to go. We're ready to just go on our journey until we get to the destination. Mm-hmm. And with that, though, was this idea that it was like we were on a party bus. And the Lord was like, I want you to know we're on a party bus. Like, we are getting ready to go have a party. Like, like, have joy, be in high spirits. This is going to be awesome. This
last leg of the journey.
Yeah. And
it's party time.
And so of course,
So it's been amazing all week. Full of the spirit of joy and laughter and celebration.
No, it's been actually a really hard time for, like with the kids and what God's been doing in their hearts and just, keeping that sense of like, man, I thought we were on a party bus. I thought this would be easier. But really, honestly, today, the Lord really brought it together because usually at the end of the week, I'm always asking the Lord, okay, what is it? What was the big picture that you had for us this week? There usually is something that you're,
a big theme.
Like kind of the theme, and that's usually what we share. And even this morning, I wasn't totally sure, and then we started talking about like, reviewing kind of the week and stuff, and I really felt like God was like,
there's been so much that's happened this week. It's hard to know. Like, I feel like we've gone through a jungle, and we're like, where's the trail? Where did we come from? Where are we going? You know what I mean? Let's pull out the compass. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So this week it hasn't been like, woo. But I think what the Lord was really trying to do there, and he was showing...
It's more like a funeral bus.
But he really was saying, like, hey, keep keep the fact that you're going to a party. This is a party bus. That's where we're going. We're headed to the party. Keep that in mind. Like, don't get bogged down by even the discipline or even the things that I'm sharing, because it can be heavy upon your heart.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't focus on that. Focus on where we're headed, where we're going. And so in this labor, it's like the Lord's still very much encouraging, like, hey, keep going. Remember, you're having a baby. Like, keep going. That kind of heart of like, you're doing good. Just, keep going. Like, I know it can be difficult. I know what I'm saying to you, what I'm speaking can be hard for your hearts to hear, or, it stirs things up and it creates like just, that having to go through, especially in maturing. And I really feel like for our oldest son in particular, the Lord is just bringing him through this time of really maturing him and growing him up. And it's been really difficult for him.
Which the Lord told him it was going to be.
Yeah. He was like, it's going to be hard, but
Thank
you're going to
Jesus,
make it.
For telling me ahead of time that it's going to be hard, so I don't think it's going to be one way.
Yeah.
Oh, it's going to be easy. No, it's going to be hard, man.
Yeah.
Because it's just going to be hard.
But he was like, but you're going to make it through. And so it's like, even... it very much is like labor. It's like, it's going to be difficult. Nobody says, oh, don't worry about that labor stuff. It's pain-free.
No big deal.
Like, no. It's like, hey, get ready, because there is an intensity to it. There is pain involved, and obviously, if you've never had children, you can only understand so much, because obviously you've never been through it. But then you start going through it, and it's like, it's in those moments as you're going through, having somebody tell you, like, hey, you're gonna make it. You're gonna get through this. Just keep breathing. Just keep going. Remember, you're in labor because you're about to have a baby. This is so great. This is actually what you've been waiting for so long. And so I feel the same is what the Lord is doing with our own hearts. He's just like, this is the time you've been waiting for this. This is where you're about to see the deliverance. And so be excited for that. Be in celebration. It's like, yes, this is a party bus. Like, be excited for all the things that we're going towards. And he really has brought us a lot of just, there was even a night where it was like, we were just talking about, you guys remember all these promises. This is what God's spoken over our lives. And it was just this sense of like, like stirring just like the joy for what is set before us. And we even had, the Lord was just asking us individually, like, in our God time, we just went around and shared, like, what's just one of the things that just really is like, he said, like, the crown jewel. What's that one thing for your heart, and everything that the Lord has promised? What's that one thing that he just like, this really just makes my heart sing? And so we were all sharing that one of the nights, and it was just, that was really awesome, and praying over all of those things. And just like, and the Lord was also sharing with us, he was just like to not be afraid, because because when you're going on a trip, and it's like when you're not in charge, because Jesus was like, I'm the driver of the bus. There's a reason you saw me driving the bus. You're not driving the bus. Devin's not driving the bus. No. Nobody else is driving the bus.
For sure.
It's like, it's me. And but he was just like, don't be afraid, because as he brings, he's like, I've got the whole itinerary. I know all of your heart's desires, and I know when to bring each of those things to you. But it was just the sense of like, you don't have to be afraid. You might start seeing, start seeing me, because I had this vision of just things starting to come onto the bus, that the Lord was just like, here you go. And it was just, it wasn't anything particular and specific that I saw. It was just the idea that things were coming into the bus, and they were all good, and it was just like,
can you
exciting.
fit a supercar on a bus? I'm trying to figure out, how does that work?
Maybe it sits on the
top. Some people, they do. They put the car underneath. They have a whole car like garage thing underneath the bus.
Yeah.
There you go.
Or you could just put it on the roof.
So when you come to a stop, you're like, here you go. Come on, let's get it out. Go. Vroom, vroom. Can you say twin turbo? Yes.
No, but yeah, so it was
What's
just,
Devin's crown jewel?
I don't know.
I cannot guess.
No, but it was just the idea that the Lord is just like, you're gonna receive what the heart's desire, because he knows it. And just to not be afraid.
Don't be afraid that you're not going to get it, or something.
And so it was just really amazing, like, to experience all of that in this week, where the Lord really has been just working so much on their hearts. And
well, can I say something about the party bus?
Yeah.
Because it never fails that when the Lord speaks a prophetic word, the opposite of that prophetic word begins to take place. Why is that? Because a lot of times I think the Lord's giving you a prophetic strategy for what you're getting ready to go into. He's like, hey, party bus, this is going to be a party bus. And then suddenly it feels like a funeral bus. Why is that? Well, because it's like, as long as you keep your spirit high and keep praising and just press in. Sometimes you got to strive to press in to the Lord beyond the darkness, beyond all the emotion, beyond all the stuff. And you get through to where the Lord is. It's like, as long as you do that, it's going to keep it on a high level. You're going to be excited. This is what's going to keep you. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to be overwhelmed by everything that's going on, and you're going to feel the opposite. You know what I mean? It's like the restoration of joy. And it's just like, that was a couple, 3 months where we just felt like, wow, if we don't keep ourselves in the joy, something's going to take us under. You know what I mean? And it's just like, a lot of times with the weight of the weight and all that stuff. So it was really kind of a prophetic strategy from the Lord. But it was also a prophetic reality. He was like, no, listen, the reality is, this is where you guys are. How can you not be excited? You're literally laying on the hospital bed. You know, you're out to here. You're dilating. These things are happening. Come on. Mm-hmm. This is exciting. That's what you've been waiting for, you see? Yeah. So it's like, focus on the right things and you'll be happy and you'll be joyful. But if you focus on the now and the temporary and the earthly, you're going to get overwhelmed by just stuff.
Yeah, well, and I think, though, too, pairing that with the actual labor, it's like, there can be a literal contracting of your heart and literal, like, feeling that pain. But in that, the Lord's like, keep your eyes still focused on me. Continue to keep that joy set before you, because...
Or you're going to get swallowed up in the pain of the labor.
Yeah, well, and that's very, like, can be very real, you know? Of just like the pain traumatic. And the sorrow of the labor of just like, oh my gosh, this is really difficult. And so with that, the Lord just like, keep focusing on me, continue to press into me. And I do think it's interesting because I feel like it really is, there is the personal like labor and delivery that the Lord is doing, but there is the national labor and delivery that the Lord is doing.
Just getting ready to say, are you going to go there? Because I got some stuff to say.
and so it's just been that as well, where we've continued to just pray, like God has really just had that upon our hearts, praying for the nation, praying for God to really expose the enemy, expose all of the wickedness in ways that has not been done before.
Drain the swamp and reveal the big nasty monsters underneath.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Just really expose stuff.
Yeah,
get it all out in the open.
Come to light.
Release the Kraken. Just let it all come out. You know what I mean?
And so it's just been like, wow. So there's that as well. And I know, it's just like, okay, Lord, you're doing two of these things, to not get bogged down by anything that you might be hearing or seeing. As far as nationally, like with the news, we don't really ever watch it ever, because it will pop up because it's like the first channel on the TV, but literally that's about as much of it as we ever see. Because it's like we got to listen to what God is speaking and what He is saying, and not what everybody else is saying or doing. And unless the Lord, I know sometimes He can direct your hearts to look at certain things, but overall it's just like, all right, we're going to continue to just listen and press into the Lord. And I just believe there is a labor that He is doing with this nation, and He is going to birth something new here,
which will affect the whole earth. I mean, I really do.
And so it's like He's like, I'm doing two things at once. He really is.
Well, and to touch on what you're saying, it's like, we've been on this journey for like almost 4 years, right? Almost 4? 2017, beginning of 2017. Almost a completion of 4 years here of just where God He brought us out of one thing and brought us into something new, and it has definitely been new, and we have not gone back to the old. And His power and His Spirit has sustained us the whole time. It's not something that we want to do. You can't just make yourself do something for the Lord and then Him have us sustain you or whatever. And there can be all kind of debate about that, but that's just not what we're doing. We're just following the Lord, And this whole time I've been wondering, like, Lord, are we ever gonna pray for the nation or anything? The whole time we have not. He's just not like, no, I don't. That's not where I have you. I don't have you doing that until this past week.
Well, the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's just been a thing. The last few weeks, but it's just been a thing. That's like, man, God is really like having us do this, and I was actually kind of happy for it. And I'm like, yeah, this is really great, but it's been mostly you. But I was like, hey, at least somebody in the family is released to do it, And it's just interesting to see what God is saying over our current presidential election and what everyone else is saying, And it's just like, I was even looking at some YouTube video last night of this guy who's just like, well, he was talking to some famous YouTube Christian guy, and he was like saying, look at all the prophets that prophesied Trump's second term. They were wrong. What do you do about that? How did it? And they have this big debate. I was just like, I was kind of skipping through it, and I'm just going, I don't have time for this. This guy, there was so much I understood about the situation. I was like, I don't even need to get involved, you know? And it was just really cool because, like, you can see the unrest in the nation. You can see the sediment that's been stirred up, and you can see so much on so many levels, all the different things that are coming out. And I felt like even as the election on night came to a not a close, came to a to be continued, the Lord was like, watch this. Watch what I'm about to do. Like, I'm about to stir some stuff up. People think it's over. And it's, it's election night's over. Well, it's done. And da-da-da. All right, we're done. God's like, oh, no. We're still draining the swamp. We're still, watch what's getting ready to happen now. I mean, I'm really pulling the big plug at the bottom now. You're going to see some stuff that's been lurking at the very bottom for a long time. You know, and I'm just like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I am excited to see it. You know what I mean? And people are going to see some stuff that's going to astound them. You know, and I mean, we can go on and talk about how the mainstream media is like the modern day prophets of Baal. That's true. We can talk about how, like, there's so many parallels between, you know, the days of Jezebel and Ahab, and how that relates to our last several presidencies, and how Trump is like either a Cyrus or a Jehu, depending on what kind of parallel you want to draw. But the bottom line is, like, man, what is the Lord saying about it? And we got this one revelation from the Lord. We did a video on it. And man, I tell you what, one of my friends that I've known for, like, good Lord, like 21 years now. That's crazy. She sent me this video and she was like, Devin, you must watch this right now. And I'm like, okay. And I started watching it. And this guy named Sid Roth, he has a TV show. It's been out for a long time. It's called It's Supernatural. And he has people come on and he vets these people. He makes sure they're not some flash in the pan weirdos or just immature, and they're not really knowing, you know, they're just immature. That's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, my 3-year-old is immature, and he's not mature enough to handle a camera or a gun. You know what I'm saying? He's immature in that level. And so these guys are, I mean, and this guy, his name is Chris Reed, and he ministers, and his prophetic words come to pass. I mean, he's just, you know, people know him. And he begins talking about these things that he was seeing from the Lord, even all the way back in August, and all of it, and how all that's starting to come to pass now, and all that, and he was sharing some amazing stuff, right? We can't get into it, but then he began to talk about the key of David, and it was just like, well, he was like, there's a lot of stuff out there about what the key of David means, but the bottom line is this. Is if you go to 1 Kings chapter 1 and you see how Adonijah tried to raise himself up, but it was really Solomon that was supposed to be king, and it was David's authority that gave, and I about melted, because I was like, oh my word. That's literally the word that the Lord gave us regarding what's going on with this election, and that's what he's using. And he's using all this stuff, all these elements to say, like, don't believe anything you hear, but believe the report of the Lord. You guys have to remember, Elijah was, I won't say he was the only one who believed in the Lord, but he was the only one sent by the Lord to do the reporting, to do the confronting, there were 7,000 that hadn't bowed the knee. Those 7,000 were still there before Elijah knew that the 7,000 were there. But the bottom line is, it was the Lord had put the anointing on Elijah to do it, and he, among all those prophets of Baal and the whole nation of Israel that was just like, I don't know, I'm just going to wait and see what happens. You know, fearful, and they're, you know, hiding in the caves of their hearts. God's like, here, I'm going to show up in fire and glory. Then you can make a decision. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, he was by himself, so to speak. I'm not disrespecting or discrediting the 7,000, but in that situation, he was the only one saying something totally different. Later on, after Elijah ran off and, you know, did that thing, Micaiah, I believe his name was, he stood up in the midst of the 400 prophets of Asherah. You know, the ones that didn't come to the 450 prophets of Baal situation, because there was a total of 850. You know, there was the prophets of Baal, but then there was also the 400 prophets of Asherah that sat at Jezebel's table, because Jezebel and her prophets weren't there. Ahab and the prophets of Baal, they were there during that whole fire from heaven type of situation. And so, and I believe Elijah was supposed to go and deal with them too, but then he ran off, you know. And so, because he saw that the people's, forget that, I'm not going to go off. Devin, no tangents, keep going. Okay. And so Micaiah, he stood up in the midst of 400 prophets of Asherah that were saying, oh, the Lord's going to do this to your enemies, and the Lord's going to do this, and the Lord's saying this, and the Lord's saying that. And he was just like, yeah, sure, yeah, that's what the Lord's saying. And King Jehoshaphat's like, boy, I told you, you better tell the truth. What is the Lord really saying? He's like, well, all right, you want to know? All of you are going to be slain. You're going to all be like sheep just slaughtered on a hill. If you go and do this thing, it's like, you don't go do it. The Lord's saying don't do it. And King Jehoshaphat was like, that's the word of the Lord. I'm going to listen to that guy. You know, so it don't matter whether you're 1 against 400. If you're with the Lord and the Lord is with you, you are in the majority. You know what I mean? So that's what I mean. That's what we've been meaning for the past. That's what the Lord has been speaking to us through the videos, the last couple of videos we've had, as we've gotten, you know, a little political with our video. They have a little political spice in it. I didn't know this was going to be part of the spices. You know, a year of oil and spices. I had no idea this was getting put in there. But it's not really so much just a political category and compartment of life. It's like this is like leadership over a country determines the path of the country, and it affects everybody. You can't call that just politics. No, that's like real life. That's serious. That's serious stuff. You know, and the stuff that God's doing, he's like, I'm exposing stuff, and I'm breaking some chains, and I'm snapping some necks. Thus saith the Lord, so that people can go free and stop being oppressed by the 900 chariots. You know what I'm saying? It's like people need to be set free. Now listen, this is a super cool thing, and I just want you guys to hear it. For those of you who can discern it by the Spirit, yay. But, you know, hear me out. The reason we don't watch the news is because, I tell you what, you know, Rick Joyner, he's gotten many revelations from the Lord. He's visited heaven many times, and he's got this great relationship with the Lord, and the Lord shares really cool things with him. And in one of his books, he said the Lord showed him how, like, there will be like a TV show or a movie or an actor or something like that will have this demonic influence on them. And he said he watched this family sitting on a couch watching this movie or something, and there was this green electric slime that was coming out onto them. So it was like the effect of this spirit was affecting them, much like a drug will affect you. If you get shot with a tranquilizer, you're just going to be like, ooh, you're going to be affected by it. I tell you what, man, every single time we turn on that TV and it's on like channel 2 is the first thing that pops up. Every time I can just, you know, and I've had this gift since some of my earliest memories. I can just discern things in the spirit. I didn't even know what it was back then. I do now, obviously. But every time I turn that TV on and it's the news, you can just feel this, like, you know what I mean? This green electric slime trying to influence your mind, and it comes with it, and it's like you can always know what the spirit is by how it's affecting you. If you don't struggle with lust at all, I mean, more than any the normal, but it's like this supernatural, oh my gosh, I'm really struggling with this, and you don't normally struggle with it, it's because you're being attacked by a spirit of lust. And that spirit of lust is on you, and you're being affected by it. You don't normally deal with anger, but you're just like, oh, I am so angry. It's because you're being attacked by a spirit of anger, you know? And so it's the same thing with, I really do. I believe there is a spiritual battle going on over our nation in the United States of America to maintain maintain control of the minds of people who watch the news. You know, because Ephesians says we wrestle not against flesh and blood. You know, it's not that, you know, people who differ from you or people in general who are the enemy. It's the spiritual forces in the unseen places. That's the enemy, and they are just freaking out. Just like there's a kind of a freak out going on in our nation in the political realm, it really is a representation of what's happening in our whole nation. There's just a freak out and an upsetting, and it's like you know, because there are people who they have their livelihood in keeping things the way they are. You know, and they don't want to be exposed and all that, and so you can tell, like, it's not just political. When you turn on the TV, when me personally, I turn on the TV and I can feel this sense of urgency from the demonic realm to, come on, believe what we're telling you. You know what I mean? That's the best way I can describe it. I mean, you turn on news all the time and it's just political mumbo jumbo, you know, keep the machine rolling. But now there's a sense of freak out and panic. And I believe that's because things are changing in the spirit, you know? They just are, and so that's really been a part of our week as well. Not so much the big part, but it's been a little bit of spice. You know, it's a year full of spices. So the Lord's been dipping this, like, hey, you got to recognize, God, get out of this paradigm that it's just politics. You're wrong. See, and that's exactly why the church doesn't impact this area, because they say, oh, that's politics, leave that alone. Oh, that's entertainment, leave that alone. Oh, that's business, leave that alone. And all this stuff gets left open for the enemy to just come in and reign over and rule over, and then you wonder why there's the horribly dressed women in entertainment and all this stuff, because there's no righteous representation there, you know. And so I just wanted to throw that in there as just being like, that's been a kind of a part of our week as well.
And I just think it's been really interesting to see for us personally, you know, because like Devin just said, like, we really haven't, you know, been super just a part of just like nationally, like what God's been speaking or doing over this journey, in the sense that God's really been working on our hearts and what He's been wanting. But through it all, it's like, well, Lord, we know that it's like we're here. Like, this is, you know, a place that you know, the United States is where we're at, and we definitely have hearts for this nation. And even throughout the journey, every once in a while, the Lord would, you know, give me either like a vision or a dream or just be speaking to me. But it's never been something really that I've gotten to share all that much, or maybe I did, but it was just very briefly. And but over these last few weeks, it's just like really been like, go ahead, I am letting you just pray and, you know, really just kind of have this heart and kind of giving vision for like what He's saying and what He's speaking over this nation. And so over the last couple of weeks, we've just really, you know, it's just been on our hearts, and I'm like, wow, Lord, this is really awesome. But it was so amazing because the other night I just really realized that God's like, I've actually prepared you for all of this. It's like, You
mean He knows what He's doing?
Yeah.
He's got a plan He's working on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the Lord is saying, like, hold fast to my word. Know, like, what I've spoken is what I want you to believe for. And so because of that, and because of the whole journey that God has brought us through personally, and just speaking to our hearts and training us in how to live by His word, how to just continue to hold fast to what He says, even when it seems like, man, this doesn't seem to be looking like what we thought it would look like, and all of that. I feel like God's like, I've prepared you for this moment of birth where I'm actually birthing two things. I'm birthing a nation, but I'm also birthing you yourself. And you didn't realize it, but because of what I've brought you through, you're going to be able to also pray for and and be a part of what I'm birthing in this nation.
Yeah.
And it's like, because when I speak a word, I know that you're going to hold fast to it. I know that you're going to believe it and carry it through. And so I just think that it's been so amazing, because it's like, I think, for so many of us, God might be working on a particular area of our heart, and even just what he's doing in our life. And it seems like, but Lord, what about this thing? Or what about that thing? Or what about these parts of my heart that I feel like we don't ever touch? Like, what's going on there? But if we just trust the Lord, I believe what he is doing is like, he is going to prepare you in that particular area, but it really will branch out into every aspect of your heart and your life. And you will see, like, whoa.
Yeah.
I'm so thankful I went through what I went through. And it was really, I think for us, it's like, it was the best possible way to go through, because I think the kind of faith, the kind of heart to say, I'm going to attach to your word, it's like it has to go through this process. And the
if
Lord
it doesn't, it's like the labor. If you don't go through labor, well, you're not going to get the baby. Why are you going to go through the whole pregnancy process and then be like, ooh, this labor stuff's too hard, let's be done? Well, you're way closer to the finish line than you were to the starting line. You got to go through to get to,
Yeah. But it's just like knowing that the Lord knows how to get our hearts to where he wants our hearts to be.
Yeah.
And he's going to use particular things in our life to bring us to those points, but to know that it's not just that area that he really is affecting. And so I thought that was really cool just to see this week how the Lord, even like, he's like, yes, you have a heart for this nation. I know it hasn't been the focal point this whole time, but I'm bringing you to this point where now I'm allowing you to just really pray for this nation. I'm opening it up to you, but because of the training that you've had personally, you're actually are effective in listening to my heart for the nation. And it's like, wow, I never realized that those two would be paired.
Yeah.
And so it's just, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, and I think like the cool part is once we got to this new room that we're in the new hotel and all this stuff, it was like our hearts on our promises were pretty solid. They were just set. They were like a cake, decorated, everything. It's out on the shelf, ready to sell. You know what I'm saying? It's like there was nothing more to do. And it was just like, I mean, yeah, there could be those little wobbles of like, Lord, what are we doing? Are we really in labor and delivery? The normal stuff that might happen. But it's like, nah, we're pretty solid on ours. And I think because of that, because we got to that place where we could be just completely bedrock solid on like, no, the Lord said this to us, this is what's going to happen, we could move on to other things. Because as long as, if the Lord tries to move you on to other things, but you feel like this thing's unsettled, it can be kind of rocky. It can be very unstable, and God can't put something else precious on something unstable. It's like we're tracking in 2017, and it's just things are going so good, and we're hearing what the Lord's saying, and then a lot of us are like, you guys open up because the Lord's speaking about what's going to be happening in 2018 now, and promises fulfilled, and I'm like, what? Excuse me? You know what I mean? And that caused us to be kind of shaky, And so, but now we're at this point where we're just not shaky anymore on it. But that's because we went through the process, and the process wasn't quick and it wasn't easy.
No.
But we did make it through, and we're just like, we have no questions about what God's promised us. We went through the time frames, all the time frames. Many of them are on videos. God bless us. But anyway. And so it's like when you're able to, it's like, I just think that's cool as well. Is that God's able to do what he's doing now because of what he's done before.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's officially it. Right?
Yes, I think
that's
so.
it.
Yeah, so, well, that's all we have for you guys today. Pray that you are blessed and that you are seeing how God is moving in your life.
And in your region.
Yeah, and just that, we are still in labor. We're going to continue to press forward, continue to just listen to the heart of God, allow Him to work on our hearts. And so
there's all kind of cool stuff we haven't even talked to you guys about yet. It's really cool, like how God's working to just continually push. Come on, give me a push. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just been really cool. I'm just like, okay.
Yeah.
Cool stuff happening.
Yeah. So, so yeah, we just pray that you guys are blessed, and until next time.
Until next time.
We will see you guys later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.